Hello and welcome to Ula Tea Leaf Readings. My name is Lenor and today I'm going to be reading your tea leaves. This is a horoscope for Libra. If Libra is your solar, lunar, ascendant / rising sign, then this is a message for you. Okay, let's get started. Okay. Let's see what we have, Libra. Okay, and I like to pull it away because sometimes it looks different when you pull it further away and you can kind of see some of the images in the what would be called a negative space, or that would be the white in between the tea leaves. Okay. So okay, so I'm kind of laughing because I can hear my daughter. She's playing with my husband and she's so cute. She has the cutest little voice, little chipmunk fairy voice right now. She's almost 3 and they always have the cutest voices when they're little like that. Okay, so I want to look at, we have the sea, and this is such a this neat little piece of tea leaf. It's just perfectly round like that. So we have this tiny little sea, and so this is somebody in the mix somewhere. I almost wonder if this is a person who has been on your mind, but just very kind of, it's almost like peripheral. Like they come and go in your mind. Maybe you see them online sometimes, or you think, oh, I wonder how they're doing. And you've been thinking about them recently. So this might be a good time to reach out. And then next to that, we also have the F here, okay? And this person, it's a little bit bigger. And I'm getting the feeling that this is somebody who is more related to the situation that we're going to be looking at. And this is somebody who is part of your normal daily life. Maybe you live with them, maybe their family, maybe a good friend, maybe somebody you work with. Whatever it is, they are, they're not somebody you're just thinking about once in a while. Okay, like the C person. So we have a C and an F to start out with. Okay, and then, so we have some kind of different formations here, but this one I want to start looks like a person, arms, shoulders, legs, head. Next to them looks like a smaller person, maybe wearing a robe or a dress or like a long nightgown, and it's smaller. It kind of looks like a child to me. So this looks like an older person with a child. Okay, and it looks like you're holding hands, and I'm going to say this is you and maybe your child, or I have talked about, if you watch any of my other signs in the last few readings, I have talked about the concept of the inner child and this necessity to kind of focus on some of those things that have been coming up that need to kind of be looked at and worked on, maybe some healing, maybe some blockages that, have been arising in your life recently, manifesting as maybe health issues or behavioral kind of issues or emotional issues, or even, within your relationship, with not only, romantic, but could just be any kind of relationship with your family members or otherwise. So I think that I really am getting this vibe again that this is something that, gosh, it just seems like it's been such a pattern in my readings. And I'm like, okay, this is like, I will share that like about this time last year, I started doing some intensive therapy to deal with some traumas in my life when I was when I was a young child up into, throughout my life really. But it just was stuff that I just could not get past. I had never spoken to anybody about it really. And I had to do just, it was actually kind of, it was really hard. It was hard, and it went on for months and months and months. Okay, so I feel like this is, it's like tied to my own psyche, but it's also tied to a lot of people that I have interacted with in the last couple months as well. It's something about this time of year, and maybe it's the renewal, maybe we have new hope for our year cycle. We're into these intense months of either winter or summer, depending on where you're at. And some of these more difficult aspects of existing start to surface in our lives, right? So, I feel like, of course, we all have things that have happened in our life that, they sometimes go unresolved and they start to show up. And there's kind of this, there are parts of our being that sometimes we kind of wall them off. Sometimes we create coping mechanisms so we don't have to kind of directly look at or deal with the issues that come along with like the situations, the scenarios, the things that went on when we were young. And it kind of like intertwines itself into our existence and, kind of rears its head at the most inopportune moments sometimes. And I just feel like this has kind of been, it's been in my readings, but I've been having, these formations show up, and I really feel for others who are going through this work. I think it's very important work. And I think it's also, especially when you have young children, I think it goes hand in hand with when you start raising other people, assisting people in, just becoming humans and, learning how to interact within society and how to do things and whatever. You start to really kind of go back and look over things that happened when you were young. And sometimes that's very, very hard, but I think it's such worthy work. And I think that this is definitely, I feel like it's just, it is something that you have also been focused on. And I really see, and the reason, let me tell you why I really think about this, especially this particular formation, even as compared to some of the other ones that I've had in the cups, is that it looks like almost like a superhero, this stance, the wide stance, very solid, right? The feet are right squared with the shoulders here in the arms, right? And looking straight on, like there's nothing in the world that could stop this person. And then kind of this little child almost looks like it's, hiding behind or holding on to this older person. So it makes me think of being your own savior, right? Being a parent to yourself, to your inner child, being that empathetic, loving, consistent, unconditional love, source of unconditional love for yourself, right? And being able to help get through some of those helpless feelings that you may have had, get through some of those guilts, some of those feelings of shame, feeling less than, feeling othered, feeling misunderstood, feeling not heard. All of these things that kind of go along with a difficult upbringing or difficult circumstances. Maybe you had a hard time in school with your peers. All of these different places that we interact with people can, has the potential to, be really great, but also you can have some really difficult interactions or situations that arise as you're growing up. And let's just face it, other kids aren't nice. Sometimes parents aren't nice. Sometimes, adults aren't nice or don't hear children. And so sometimes, that sometimes gets folded into how we experience the world from that young age all the way up until, we die, really. So I think that you will recognize that this is something that needs help. It needs something that you need to assist yourself in resolving some of the stuff, figuring out how to maybe not get rid of it. You can't dispel this from your experience, but you can look over it and, kind of sort some of it out and start to integrate these different ways of experiencing that pain into your life going forward. Okay. And here we have this beautiful little butterfly, and that's always a wonderful sign of metamorphosis, growth, and not just a momentary, fleeting kind of growth, really a lasting, turning into that beautiful, beautiful source of universal movement and really having an impact not only on your own life, but the lives of the people around you and your community and, just collectively as human beings. Okay. And let's see. Now, this one was really interesting to me. And it's interesting because there were the pair of the adult and child, and now there's this kind of pair, and it almost looks like they remind me of these kind of insectoid, humanoid beings that are kind of elementals. They're kind of tied to the framework of base reality. And these are things that people kind of talk about when they're doing plant medicines, specifically like I think DMT or peyote or, things like this. And these are also aligned with like extraterrestrial, maybe. I think there's like a class of them. They're like praying mantis kind of beings. So whenever I see them, for me, elementally, they are tied into what I would call I call them timekeepers, but only because time is a construct, right? So these are kind of the upholders of the matrix or base reality, the how we experience collectively the world we live in, and we could go into a long tangent about what that means, and do we kind of all experience the same thing, or is it completely different to each individual, or are we experiencing ourselves? Or I like the idea of what is it, the dreaming God machine, right? So it's the God dreaming about itself, and we are that dream. Which is really interesting. But I think that this, to me, really ties into you have just been on this big, big journey in life, but really recently kind of coming into this period of things kind of shifting just enough that you're seeing that kind of these old understandings are kind of becoming outmoded for you. That I get this it's like I get this vision of like a set on like for a play or for a movie, and suddenly there's like pieces of the backdrop kind of like falling, and it's like, oh wait, this isn't real. Like, this is kind of fake. Kind of like, like a Truman Show kind of thing, where all of a sudden it's like, okay, all these things that I thought were just like totally, what I could match up against as being, this is really real, this is reality, that it's falling apart a little bit. And not in a way that is like negative. I'm not saying that it's like, everything's a lie or something like that. But kind of like you're having a real spiritual, but also existential awakening. And it can be a little terrifying, right? That can be a little off-putting. With that kind of change in paradigm shift of existence, we can become pretty startled, pretty creeped out, pretty like worried that everything is fake news, everything is a lie, everything is a conspiracy, right? And I think that, it's a good thing to go through these awakenings. It's a difficult thing if it suddenly is happening all at once. And I think it's, the big part of it is tempering self and not allowing yourself to succumb to people's ideas about these kinds of things, where you become kind of radicalized, or come into these extreme ideas about other people, or about I don't know. I think it just leads to a lot of paranoia and unnecessary kind of spiraling. And I don't want to be dismissive of people's worries about the world, about the institutes and structures and so on, the power dynamics and everything else. I think that those are all things that we should consider and think about, and but you can't lose yourself in it, or spiral into very poor mental health because of it, because it's so easy to kind of do that do that kind of dance that a lot of people have had to go through these last years, especially last 10 years, 5 years, with the uprising of social media and interconnectedness and all these kinds of sources of information, and trying to discern what's what, so I think that, you kind of, I feel like with this other stuff that you've been working on, with your self-work, with this kind of, like we talked about, with this like inner child, and, really trying to support yourself through getting some of these blockages, that on top of the state of the world, the things that we interact with online or through our peers, through our family members, whatever. All of this information that we have to dig through and try to figure out what's what. Worried about, you know, the world not seeming like we thought it was, you know. Those two things can be difficult. And I think it's easy to relate them to each other on a deeper level than they should be in those first stages, right? So I think it's just really important to take your time with these separate issues, okay? And if you have the privilege of being able to afford any kind of counseling or therapy, and I'm sure anybody who's watched my other videos, you laugh because I mention it constantly. I think that it's really important to have those kind of supports or some kind of, you know, mentor or, I don't know, some kind of spiritual coach or whatever it is, a spiritual person, clergy person, whatever you relate most to, okay, or is available to you, whatever you feel comfortable with, okay. I think it's important to have those people in your life so that, and people who, and let me just mention this, people who are outside of the vacuum of our own belief systems, our own dogmas, our own proclivities, people who are kind of, you know, neutral and, you know, that's why I always talk about therapy, because these are people who are paid to be neutral and kind of be sounding boards, and they ask the right questions to help us kind of navigate. And, you know, there are legal bonds that they, you know, they have to adhere to standards of practice. So that's so important in my opinion. Okay. And, you know, it's great to have people in our life who are like-minded, who make us feel like we belong to something, who understand us. But we also need to interact with people who are grounded, who aren't swept up in all the same things that we are, and so on. Okay. So I think that's important. If you're able to do that, I think it's important to just kind of keep that in mind. But, you know, I really, when I'm looking at this, the posture of them, I feel like you're just really on this, like, you're really on this journey of just finding things about the world, right, that are so interesting that, yeah, kind of scary. But you know, so a lot of it is benign, and, you know, hopefully it just inspires you to dig deeper, to find things, that are of interest to you. Keep learning, keep learning, keep learning. That's the biggest thing in life, I think, is just that no matter what age we are always students. And if you are able to teach others and help others in their learning, also doing that, because that helps us learn as well. Okay, so we should always be in a mode of educating ourselves, I believe. Okay, and that's my hot take about life, is that we should constantly be learning new things, and we should be curious, remain curious, and exploring, and you know, keep moving in those ways. You know, be it learning how to do things, learning how to create things, learning how to or, you know, learning different skills, whatever, academia, reading new books, reading new, you know, schools of thought, whatever it is. We should all be doing that constantly, I think, and trying to make time for it. So I think that, you know, you're really going through, like I had said before, this paradigm shift, okay? And I think the ultimate thing is just setting up those support systems for yourself. I also see this goose, and again, if anybody has watched my other readings, we have a lot of geese. I love geese, I guess, and they love me because they show up in my stuff quite often. And with the geese, especially when they're in this flying posture, it's that kind of transitory migration. And I think this goes with these other things that we're talking about with the self-work, really trying to work on some of those, past issues, large or small. But in these transitions, really focusing, and that's the big thing I'm seeing in this bowl, the energy is that there lining up the support with the work, okay, and making sure that you are feeling, happy, healthy, safe. That's the big word I want to focus on here. Feeling safe emotionally, spiritually, psychically. Okay. And I wanted to bring this one up really quick. Let me set this down. I wanted to bring the card up, and this is the Sun card, or Soul, right? And I think, this aligns with this reading, especially with this idea of kind of things being revealed to you about the nature of reality. For me, when I see any kind of like solar imagery like this, it is all about shining that bright light that, all of the shadows are kind of disappear. There is no angle where things are not being illuminated. It's all out in the open. Okay. And with that beautiful solar rose, the secrets of the universe, the secrets of the divine are coming into us, being shown to us. We are of them. They are of us. And also reminds me of a quote that I just saw on of all things, a t-shirt that was really cool. And it said, the only way out is in. Right? So we have to go in, deep inside, inside of the catacombs of our being if we want to get out of, and I guess in my mind, I think of like the wheel of Dharma, or this, idea of being manifest in the corporeal body over and over, and working out our scenarios, our little, Greek plays that are our lives, our epics, and, working on our karma and so on, so that we may stop being, reborn and whatever. But most importantly, we have to do that interior work so we can untie those knots, those deep, deep knots that really bind us, that keep us jammed up, that, create those blockages we've been talking about. Okay. Let's see what else. Let's see. Now, I wanted to look at this one. It looks like a little bird, like a parrot, sitting on like one of those little stands that they have for like when you have a parrot as a pet. And for me, this really reminds me of what we were talking about, finding people that are outside of that vacuum of interests that you have, or whatever kind of system you're into or involved in, or subculture, or, whatever. Finding people outside of that, because when we only surround ourselves with people like that, it's almost like everybody's parroting one another. You're all going off the same kinds of information, the same wave. There's not a lot of, there's not a lot of, I want it delicately, Lenor, delicately. I think that there needs to be more critical thinking happening outside of like people who just agree with us, right? And I'm not saying it has to be confrontational. I'm not about that. The fighting and the criticism and arguing and posturing and all those kinds of things. I don't think that's helpful either, but it's not helpful to be, okay, and I had to just cut that off. My daughter got into the room and anyways, she's like, okay, Mom, hurry up. You've been on there for too long. Okay, so I just wanted to, where were we? We're talking about the parroting. Okay, so I think it's great to have our little groups of people, the people we feel like we can be ourselves with, but we do need outside influences. We need people who are not going to just like feed into all the things that we're into. I think it's important to have varied kinds of interactions with people and so on. So I think that's just something to keep in mind here. Okay, and this bowl is getting... I just wanted to also talk about... this little part right here. We haven't looked at that yet. But for me, it looks like the entrance to like a cave, right? And having to do with this reading, I really think that this to me speaks to finding a place inside of your own mental landscape, or some people call it like an astral plane or like your interior laboratory, somewhere where you can visualize going. And, well, for me, like, okay, let me give you an example. This is like a place that, and I have quite a few, but I've oftentimes right before bed, I like to visualize somewhere where I go and I bring, and this is in my mind, so it's kind of like a guided meditation or visualization or whatever. I like to bring an offering to my own, kind of spiritual guides or whatever you want to call them, that bring me into my dream world. So I oftentimes will dream about, or I will also oftentimes have in my mind a vision or visualize like a wall where I go and there are markings on the wall, and there's like a little place there where I can lay down a basket that's filled with, and then every visualization is different, but this is where I leave an offering, okay? This is kind of an offering, but also an appeal where I'm asking for guidance to be received, and to also, be blessed with some kind of information or learning or clarity, whatever it is that I'm looking for or working on in those times, and that I may receive that in my dreams. Okay, so I think that this is a good time for you to kind of create that place for yourself, and to maybe just play around with these kinds of practices of visualizing and maybe asking for some of these kinds of clarity and guidance in the work that you're doing, which with the interior work, but also with these kind of paradigm shifts that you're going through. Okay, so also not only just the guidance, but the support from the divine. Okay, feeling held, coveted, safe. Okay, heard, witnessed by the divine, and that the divine is walking along with you while you're going through these kinds of shifts in your life. And I think that is, I think that's pretty much, the whole tone of this reading for me, for you, Libra, is that this is a really potent time for you. I think in this next month, 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, I think that this, you know, if you can focus on doing some of this stuff, write it down, journal it, you know, just if you can get into those routines, I think that it will really help you kind of balance out some of the feelings you're having, balance out some of the intentions of work you're doing, and feeling a little bit more secure in this path that you are on. Okay, and I thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I'm gonna hurry up and wrap it up because I can tell my daughter is gonna bust back in this room pretty soon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you would be so kind and like the video, it helps me get into the algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And what else? Oh, leave a comment. I love to hear from you. Tell me how you're doing, what's going on in your life. How are these readings resonating with you? We'll be back with another Libra video in 12 days. Hopefully, I missed a day this week. So, yeah, it'll be in 12 days though. And in the meantime, you can watch your other placements. So your solar, lunar, ascendant / rising, and some people are watching their Venus. So, I have heard that. All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We will see you again very soon. Bye-bye, Libra.